Okay, let's grab our Bibles. We're in Revelation 6. Revelation 6 for the message tonight. The way the holidays are falling this year, we aren't going to have any break on Wednesday nights through the holidays, so we just keep the Revelation messages coming, unless the Lord leads otherwise. But as far as the kids go, we are going to take a 1-week break with the kids and youth, and that'll be the week between Christmas and New Year's. So that Wednesday night we'll have a all-in service here in the sanctuary. Just a little update for you there as we continue down the road of the Revelation. I'm pretty proud of myself that we're already in chapter 6 and we started in August. I'm pretty happy about that, actually. I'm not going to hurt myself, pat myself on the back or anything, but that's pretty impressive. But we do kind of have to take these parts, especially at the beginning of the judgment on the earth, slow enough to be methodical enough to understand what's going on, okay? So, thus far, in the first 5 chapters of the Revelation, we have seen the witness of the Lamb, or the witnesses of the Lamb, whichever way you want to put it, the witnesses of the Lamb in chapters 1 through 3. Then we've seen in chapters 4 and 5 the worship of the Lamb. And if you're following along and smart enough to figure this out, now we are going to move on to the wrath of the Lamb. So what that means, very simply, is judgment begins. And the wrath of the Lamb actually takes place pretty much all through chapters 6 to 19. There will be some spaces in there that are a little off of the judgment, but for the most part, chapters 6 through 19 is the wrath of the Lamb. So this serves as just another way of understanding the full picture of the book of Revelation up to chapter 19. It is a book that stands out in many ways as a great mystery to us, and I believe the reason it's most mysterious is because it hadn't happened yet. I mean, after all, tomorrow's a mystery as well, isn't it? Why? Because it hadn't happened yet. Now, we think we may have a pretty good idea of what's on tap for tomorrow, but you know as well as I do that one phone call and the world can go pretty crazy. So, as much as we can simplify, then, a mysterious, somewhat difficult read, we're going to continue to do so by holding on to this outline: the witnesses of the Lamb, the worship of the Lamb, and now the wrath of the Lamb. As previously stated, Revelation 1:19 speaks of the scene, S-E-E-N, the things that were right now for John in chapter 1, the things that were seen. He saw the glorified, resurrected, sitting on the right hand of God, Son of God, Jesus, in Revelation 1. And of course, then there were the things that are, which is the condition of the church. That's chapters 2 and 3. Then there is the hereafter. And again, we're just kind of retracing our steps a little bit here, that's where chapter 4, verse 1 comes to play. After this I looked, and behold, a door was open in heaven, and the first voice which I heard was, as it were, of a trumpet talking with me, which said, Come up hither, and I will show thee things which must be in the hereafter. So, Revelation 4:1 begins the hereafter. We're in chapter 6. Therefore, we are past chapter 4. We are now in the hereafter. So, upon embarking on the hereafter in chapters 4 and 5, a heavenly scene unfolds. The throne, the guardians of the throne, the church is all pictured in chapters 4 and 5. An angelic host is experienced, as well as all who surround the throne, who are looking to the Lamb who was slain as he stands up to take center stage in this apocalyptic scene. Upon the question, who is worthy to take the deed of the earth, Jesus is the one who steps forward and obtains the scroll that emanates from the throne, the scroll with 7 seals. Since Jesus was the only one worthy to take it, he is also the one who will be the only one able to open the seals, which ultimately is the title deed to the universe. So I quote John Phillips, who wrote in his book Exploring Revelation, for 2 breathtaking, soul-inspiring chapters, we have been in heaven. The scroll has changed hands, and the right to judge and rule the world has been placed upon Jesus. Now we must come down from the mount and out of the ivory palaces. Down here on the rebel planet of earth, the tempo is increasing, passions are rising, evil men and seducers are certainly waxing worse and worse. Disobedience to parents has grown up into brawling maturity, defying all authority. Men have become inventors of evil things, and their fearful inventions have become Frankenstein monsters, threatening to destroy the globe. The time has come for God to intervene in human affairs, so judgment is given to the Son. I believe when we open up the 2 seals that we'll open up tonight, you're going to see, maybe if you haven't read or studied this in a while, for me to really study it's been about 5 years now. It is amazing how much has happened in the last 5 years that make these first 2 seals opening even that much more easy to see, easy to understand how that's the world's just leading toward this. And I guess that could be said throughout history, because the world, since the fall of man, hasn't been getting better and better. It's been getting worse and worse. And so that quote from John Phillips speaks of the Scriptures waxing worse and worse. So here we are in chapter 6, verse 1. And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard, as it were, the noise of thunder. One of the 4 beasts saying, Come and see. And I saw him, behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. So seal number 1 is opened, and immediately what is seen is a white horse. So a white horse is seen as seal number 1 is opened. I pause here briefly because some of the Bibles that we carry were actually introduced pre-1948. And the world changed forever in 1948. Therefore, the revelation really, the interpretation of the revelation really, that's not even the right word. The revelation opened up further, let's put it that way, after 1948. Why? Because Israel was established again as a nation. And so before 1948, many Bibles, some of my study Bibles included, will liken this white horse as Jesus. In fact, my Thompson chain reference does. Anybody carry a Thompson chain reference in here? You do. I know, Brother John, you have one. I know Connie does as well, because I've seen hers in Sunday school. But you'll see out in the side of the Thompson chain reference that when the white horse is introduced, out beside it in the margin, it says Jesus there. And this is not Jesus. It can't be. Jesus will come on a white horse in Revelation 19 at his second coming. But we're not quite there yet. Okay? So this white horse has to be something else that we are witnessing. Okay? He's described, this white horse, as having a bow in his hand and a crown on his head that was given to him. Okay? He's got a bow in his hand and a crown on his head. I will say this, that the white horse is symbolic to a time of peace. A time of peace. But his duty, as we see at the end of verse 2, is he went forth conquering and to conquer. So even though the white horse represents a time of peace, it is doubtless a false peace presented by the rise of power of the one who will ultimately become the Antichrist is underway. Okay? So no doubt this false peace is presented by future Antichrist. Interesting to me in verse 2 also, this white horse, he that sat on him had a bow. What seems to be missing there? Arrows. What good is a bow without any arrows? It's really pretty useless, right? So, with no arrows, this certainly has to mean something. It is symbolic of the fact that his conquest is going to be rather diplomatic rather than by force, at least initially. Okay, I have to say that because I believe ultimately the Antichrist will be extremely violent. The Antichrist will likely have the majority of the world's weapons at his disposal. If you will, that suitcase that our president carries around with the codes. And I do believe that the future Antichrist will use those codes on anyone who refuses to follow. If you've ever read any of the Left Behind series, this is depicted quite well. And though it was definitely a set of books that was fiction, there were a lot of facts in there. And one of the things that was depicted in the Left Behind series, which was written now around the turn of the millennium, right? I think it was around 2000 when we started reading those, right? Late 90s, early 2000s, for sure. I mean, they extended out forever, but I only got through like 6 of them, I think, and then it was just kind of like, okay, I know how it ends. But one of the things that is depicted in there is that the United States is one of the rebellious nations. That our president goes against, the one who would be Antichrist or is rising to power. In those books, he's called Nikolai Carpathia. He goes against, and so the Antichrist, future Antichrist, rains down all kinds of terror and weaponry and destroys many of the major cities in the United States. Isn't that interesting? You fast forward 20 plus years now, and I don't see that really happening anymore. I see our country just folding right into the process. Isn't that sad? Amazing, though, what 2 decades will do, right? That's what I'm saying. Even as you read the Revelation and study it maybe 5, 10 years, space between, things change quite dramatically. So the fact that this bow he has in his hand doesn't come with any arrows means that he's probably going to be a real smooth talker. All right? Probably going to have a lot of diplomatic weight. And listen, if you couple this with Daniel chapter 9 and the peace covenant that's signed between the Antichrist, or the one who will become Antichrist, and Israel, there's going to have to be a lot of smooth talking to go on with the world, the rest of the world, signing a peace covenant with them. So he's going to have to be pretty good. I'll also tell you this. I think he's got to be pretty good because he's going to have to explain away the rapture. All right, and I don't believe that everybody's going to fall for the alien thing. I mean, I just don't believe that. I believe some people are going to be gullible enough to believe that there's a spaceship came down, we all just went up in the spaceship, and poof, we're gone. And that's weird, though. Somehow, some way, he's got to explain away. I don't know. Okay, there's 8 billion people on the planet. How we get that number, I don't know. It's probably got to be some kind of a computer that's spitting that number out at us. But if there's 8 billion people on the planet, how many Christians do you think there are out of those 8 billion? Anybody ever thought about that? How many? Just take a wild guess. You think 1%? Hopefully more than that. Man, you're pretty pessimistic tonight, Benny. What's 1% of 8 billion? Okay, let's say there's 1 billion. An eighth of the world is Christians. Let's go with that, because that's I like the way you're thinking. That's simple. How do you explain away 1 billion people disappearing in an instant? That's going to be pretty hard, isn't it? Should we bring out the 70s picture again? Remember the 70s picture that we all admired when we were kids? It was the planes crashed into the buildings, the cars wrecking, and the picture of the Lord in the cloud, and the people's bodies going up with him, and all this kind of stuff. The graves were opening up, and just all kinds of this great rapture picture that we looked at for all through the 70s. I looked at it, and as Desi said to Lucy, somebody's got some splaining to do. Right? Well, that must mean that this future Antichrist, I keep calling him that because he doesn't actually become the Antichrist till 3.5 years in. That moves around a little bit, but most of us probably know that. So he doesn't actually get inhabited by the devil completely. He's certainly working for him from the beginning, but now he's completely and totally given over to him 3.5 years in, when he goes to Jerusalem and sets up his reign there. But in the meantime, he's got a world that's in turmoil and trouble, and chaos. And so for there to be any peace whatsoever and not violence, there's got to be a lot of smooth talking going on. There's got to be a calming voice. That, to me, is the picture of the white horse. The calming voice in the chaos. I probably should have put that in your notes, but I just came up with that just now. The calming voice in the chaos is what the future Antichrist will be. So, since he is able to sufficiently give answers, to give the world some leadership, a crown is put on his head. What does a crown always depict? Somebody who's in charge. Okay, so the world, maybe not the whole world. I still can't put China anywhere, okay? I got to be honest with you. China's the outlier. But the majority of the world is definitely going to immediately gravitate toward him. What if it's Elon Musk? I don't know. He's from, we looked it up, by the way. He's from South Africa. I'm not sure, that's not necessarily a European country, but I don't know. Why do we even guess? We usually get all caught up in that because most of you thought it was Kissinger back in the day, right? JFK is any number of world leaders that could get a following. Well, I will say this, that those people probably were a little bit of the forerunners to people that we know some of the characteristics. They're going to have them because this guy's going to be good, really good, at convincing the world that it's okay, that everything's all right. In this process of getting the world all put back together, according to Daniel chapter 9, he revives the 10 nations of the old Roman Empire and convinces the world that he is able, through this revival of the old Roman Empire, to bring about world peace, what every Miss USA contestant always has wished for: world peace. All of this is accomplished, again, in a peaceable manner, no arrows involved. We might relate this to the fact that the world is indeed longing for a real, true leader to follow who has answers. Now, I smile and I chuckle a little bit from saying that because I wrote these notes 5 years ago. And lots happened in 5 years. Actually, maybe closer to 6 years ago, but for sure 5 years ago. And we're just about to the end of my notes, so I'm actually going to have to really start studying again. But the world is even more ripe today than it even was 5 years ago. Let's don't go there. That was me talking to me, by the way. But we do definitely note the lack of any real leader in our world today. You know, Putin is a crazy man. We all know that. We've known that for 25, 30 years. I tell you who is pretty impressive, though, is that Ukrainian president. I can't remember his name right offhand, and if I knew it, I probably couldn't pronounce it. That guy's pretty impressive for everything that he's done for his nation and what he was before and what he's transitioned into. But one thing about it, there's just not many of those guys around. John Wayne died a long time ago. You know, the real powerful world leaders, you know, tear down that wall, Mr. Gorbachev, probably died somewhere in the late 80s, early 90s. And so what has that produced but a world now for going on 30, 35, 40 years that needs leadership? And we know until the Lord Jesus comes back himself, the world's not going to turn to him, because all of this is happening according to this. So the white horse represents then these answers as the world follows the one who is going to lead them to certain doom and destruction. Because that's where the white horseman leads, is to doom and destruction and ultimate judgment. So that gets us to seal number 2. Seal number 2, and when he had opened the second seal, remember he is Jesus, because he is the only one worthy to open this sealed scroll. I heard the second beast say, "Come up and see," or "Come and see." There went out another horse. This horse was red, and power was given unto him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another, and there was given unto him a great sword. Wow, immediately we see some big contrast, don't we? The Antichrist comes in with a diplomatic message of world peace, and this is the way to establish it. Gets the peace covenant signed with Israel and the rest of the world, and is well on his way, because nobody has ever been able to negotiate peace with Israel, right? I mean, that's just been a lost cause, but this guy accomplishes that. Maybe that's the reason they put the crown on his head, because nobody else has been able to do that. And so when he comes along, and now he's got all the power, and by the way, when he has all the power, that means that all the nations are giving him the power. He's revived the old Roman Empire, which through the course of history never really died. It just kind of faded into what we now kind of still live by in a lot of ways. And now he's got this all back together, and the whole world is not only looking to him, but allowing him to gain and gather more power. Seal number 2 verifies the fact that its color reminds us of blood. This red horse, as well it should, as this horse represents a time of great war that will be on a global scale. So the revealing of the red horse reminds us of blood. This horse represents great war on a global scale. A little bit further examination and we'll be finished for tonight. The peace that was talked about in the appearing of the white horse will not be a lasting peace. By the way, there's only one who can provide that. That is the Prince of Peace. He's still about 7 years away. Okay? The horse and the rider will produce worldwide war, as verse 4 states. Peace will be taken from the earth. And then, again, something that is not as far-fetched to think about as becoming a reality as it was even 4 or 5 years ago. They should kill one another. They should kill one another. You see, people are going to turn on each other and become violent. So as you know, my social media outlet, weirdly enough, is Twitter. And mostly everything I follow is sports. Also probably shocking to you. And so a pretty significant sports figure died yesterday, or day before, yesterday. He was a football coach up at Texas Tech, so we in this part of the country knew him pretty well, Mike Leach. So I was just scrolling through some stuff yesterday, and I saw a tweet with a press conference from Mike Leach where they were grilling him about being a Trump supporter. This was back several years ago. You know what his response was? So Mike Leach-esque. By the way, he's one of my favorite characters maybe that's ever come through any kind of sports. I mean, the guy was just his quotes will live on forever. But he said, you know what? I didn't know that I lived in a country where you cared so much about what my choice was as to who I liked and who I didn't like, and who I voted for and who I didn't vote for. I thought, he said, this is a free country, and I have the right to choose who I like and who I vote for and who I don't and who I don't. What a great quote. But you know what? Do you see in the last 5 years much more division and people turning very violent over politics as never before? And so, again, even in the 4 or 5 years since the last time I really studied, we can see how verse 4 is going to be happening very easily. People are going to turn on each other and become violent to the death of their neighbors. Imagine if in the next election you put up a sign in your front yard about or for someone and somebody came and burned your house down. Hey, look, I'm sure that's already happening in parts of our country. You know? Pretty ugly. By the way, it's a pretty good chance that we will cease to be a polling place as a church because of a pretty good scene that was made at our election just a few weeks ago. Yeah. Pretty sad, huh? Right here in Sweetwater, America. The sword mentioned here is not, by the way, the long type traditionally at the side of a warrior. It is actually a short knife. It's a small dagger. And it's a weapon that's easily carried, so it can be easily used. That's the kind of sword. And by the way, it is also the same sword that's used, the same word for the word sword that's used in Ephesians chapter 6, the sword of the Spirit. It's the small sword. It's not the long one. It's the small sword that we can do hand-to-hand combat with. And you know as well as I do that kind of a weapon can be violent and can be used by anybody, trained or otherwise. So this shows again how available weapons will be during this time, as well as how they will be used on each other, possibly literally in hand-to-hand combat, neighbor against neighbor. Wow. Where's Wilson Wilson when you need him? Man. So the white horse and the red horse, seals number 1 and number 2, leading into the third seal next week. Thank you, Lord, for our time together in your word tonight. Thank you that you have already taken us out and into heaven by the time this happens via the rapture, which we anxiously await, but realize that we still have a moment in time to be the witness that we need to be, so our friends and neighbors won't have to go through this mess Please take this word and help it to encourage us to be a better witness for you. In Jesus' name, amen. All right.